Hello, you're watching news from Kazakhstan. I'm Nurbek Savitakhunov, and these are the headlines. The human rights organization Amnesty International acknowledged the arrested director Bolat Atabayev as prisoner of conscience, and supporters worry about his health. Meanwhile, activist of the Popular Front Ayjan Amirova was released from prison. President Nazarbayev offers to commit employers to join the union Atameken, headed by his son-in-law Timur Kulibayev. The opposition, meanwhile, discusses Kazakhstan without its leader. The former Soviet Union commemorated and mourned the beginning of the Great Patriotic War on its anniversary on Friday, June 22nd. Former Zhanaozen mayor Orak Sarbapeyev was released straight from the courtroom. On Friday, June 22nd, the Aktau District Court jury acquitted Sarbapeyev from all charges.
Orak Sarbapeyev was charged with accepting a bribe, abuse of office and conspiring and attempting a crime. The trial started in May, but after the prosecutor proved that several jurors were plotting with Sarbapeyev's lawyer, the process was suspended. On Thursday, during the arguments of the sides, a witness confirmed that he had given the ex-mayor a $50,000 bribe. The prosecutor asked the judge to sentence Sarbapeyev to 13 years in prison with confiscation of his property. The former official still says he is innocent.
Activist of the Popular Front Ayjan Amirova was also released from prison, reported her brother to Radio Liberty. However, he could not clarify whether charges against her were dropped or if Amirova was requalified from suspect to witness in the case of inciting social hatred. It is only known that Ayjan is now in Aktau.
The People's Front activist was arrested in January this year after she provided information, legal and humanitarian support to striking workers of Ozen Munaygas in Zhanaozen. Not long ago, Aliya Turuzbekova, the wife of the arrested politician Vladimir Kozlov, stated that Ayjan might be let free in exchange for cooperation with the investigation and giving testimony against the Alga party leader. Kozlov himself is also charged with inciting social hatred.
The Respublika newspaper published the arrested politician Vladimir Kozlov's notes from prison that ended up at their disposal. The diaries mostly contained messages to his wife, observations about his detention at the National Security Committee detention ward in Almaty, inspections, and his transport to Aktau. No politics, only a struggle for survival and preservation of dignity. We offer you small portions of these records. May 18th, 2012. Yet another search after lunch. Now they took away my watch. Back to the paddy wagon after the search. Its size is 3 by 1.5 meters, and there are 14 people inside, each with a few bags. It's 28 degrees Celsius outside, and the wagon is not ventilated. So we hang in there for an hour or so chatting. We sit side by side with young murderers who are being transferred to the adult prison. The chat is a mix of prison lingo and normal language, but they ask appropriate questions and even respect us because Serik Sapargali and I are linked to the Zhanaozen events. May 22nd, 2012. Together with Serik, we are kept in a separate cell, only 2 of us, apart from the others. That's a pity. The guards gave us 2 cans of oiled bream. It sounds better than it tastes. It smells like the bream was taken from the swamp and immediately put in the can. But we ate it all as we were really hungry, together with the bread, 4 loaves. We poured some boiling water on the cans, and now we will use them as cups. May 23rd, 2012. I am discussing various political topics with Serik. According to the case, we are accomplices, but there is nothing to talk about in terms of the case. We have already told the truth during the investigation. I told the investigator Shaiken that it will be very easy for us to defend ourselves at the trial. All we need to do is say as it is. We do not deny the events. We disagree that our political activities are interpreted by investigation as criminal. Vladimir Kozlov, the leader of the opposition party Alga, and public activist Serik Sapargali were arrested on January 23rd in Almaty upon the searches of their apartments. Both were charged with inciting social hatred in Zhanaozen, where the strike of oil workers turned into bloody riots. Kozlov's wife was not allowed to visit her husband for a few months, while his associates picketed the NSC offices throughout the country. In May, the arrested men were sent to Aktau for the trial. In total, the same charges have been brought against 20 activists. First Secretary of the suspended Communist Party of Kazakhstan, Gaziz Aldamzharov, was called for questioning to the National Security Committee office on Friday. It is not yet clear what for, but after the visit to the NSC, he refused to talk to the press as he signed a non-disclosure agreement. Meanwhile, the arrested public activist Bolat Atabayev was acknowledged as prisoner of conscience. The international human rights organization Amnesty International made this announcement on its website. The organization urges Kazakh authorities to release the theater director, noting that he is being persecuted for expressing his opinions. Also, the organization is concerned about the activist's health. A diabetic, Atabayev is being transported under guard to Mangistau, and he may not be able to obtain the necessary medications on his way there.
Bolat Atabayev is slowly dying. The information appeared on the net on Friday morning and stirred quite a reaction among the online community. Website Respublika received an anonymous letter saying that the arrested director has already lapsed into coma twice while being transported to the Mangistau region. Atabayev suffers from diabetes, but it is not giving enough water or medication during the trip, although he should take it twice a day. There could be not enough food either. People who are well aware of Atabayev's poor health condition are seriously concerned. If they don't give him enough food and water in the train, I'm afraid that Atabayev might not make it. He's 60 years old man with about 7 health conditions and 3 surgeries behind his back. Dana Atabayeva, the sister of the well-known stage director, called the investigator who leads her brother's case, and he assured that Atabayev is fine and is currently on his way to Aktau. I called the lawyer, but she wasn't aware of it. She will be flying out there on Tuesday morning, and I will fly out in the evening. On Thursday, Amnesty International also expressed its concern, requesting the authorities of Kazakhstan to release Bolat Atabayev. Foreign human rights activists say the stage director became a victim of fabricated charges and is now considered Kazakhstan's prisoner of conscience. We appeal to the authorities of Kazakhstan, asking them to immediately and unconditionally release Bolat Atabayev. We call to render all the necessary medical aid to Bolat Atabayev upon his first request. We urge the authorities to guarantee the right for freedom of expression in accordance with international obligations in regards to human rights, including Article 19 of the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. UK socialists threw their weight behind Atabayev as well. On Thursday, they held a picket outside the Kazakhstan embassy in London. Nakabekov sisters and the chairman of the independent trade union Janartu Yesinbek Ukteshbayev from Kazakhstan were among the people demanding to release Atabayev. Public Committee Arash in defense of Bolat Atabayev and Janbulat Mamai, both charged with inciting social hatred, is also monitoring the situation. On Friday, they released the first statement. Activists demand for a fair and impartial investigation of the Zhanaozian tragedy and also to punish everyone responsible for what happened. It is emphasized that the stage director and politician are persecuted for supporting the oil strike, which later turned into a tragedy. Now they need protection themselves. Everyone who believes in their innocence is welcome to join the campaign in defense of Bolat Atabayev and Janbulat Mamai.
A demonstration calling to stop the expression of one's civic stand was held today in Almaty at the monument to the Soviet Union hero Baurjan Momishuli. Picket organizer Orken Jaimirgen explains that the era of heroism has passed with the war, and therefore he advises fellow journalists from Zhanaozian.net who are awaiting trial for demonstrating at the National Security Committee building not to risk their lives protecting their freedom of speech.
I want to tell Ingay Manbay, Salamat Tomash and Anar Abdildina not to do anything stupid. At this time, we don't need any heroic deeds. This is why I want to tell them to act quietly. This way, they'll live longer. This was the first action by Jaimirgen, who said he decided to do it because he's worried about his colleagues. The latter appreciated the gesture, saying that even such anti-protests, the public is yet again reminded about the problems of freedom of expression in Kazakhstan. This is how it will be in the future, with locks on our lips and closed eyes, because the ones who see everything will be guilty as well.
The Kazakhstan government is anticipating a new financial crisis. Prime Minister Karim Masimov suggested at a joint session of parliament on Friday that even the current year's budget may be cut across the board. There are assumptions that later in the year we'll be hit with a second wave of the crisis and oil prices will drop significantly. At the National Commission, I've given a task to come up with options for economic development in case if it drops to $50 per barrel. This is quite a realistic scenario at this point. This pessimistic forecast by the head of the government seems to cool down the MPs who were planning to cast a vote of no confidence to Masimov's cabinet for the catastrophic non-execution of the state budget. Last year, over $280 million remained unspent. The cabinet head has admitted the fault of his subordinates, assured that they would be made accountable, and even promised to involve the financial police. Finance Minister Bolat Zhamishev claims that the senior officials have already been punished. But in the end, the MP's intent to dismiss the government has turned out to be an empty threat, just like experts predicted. By this time, the ongoing financial crisis seems to have puzzled business organizations as well. On Friday, participants of the Conference on Enterprise Development in Acorda literally lined up in front of the head of state with requests relating to material incentives and preferences. Some asked for cheaper loans, others followed, others for lower bank rates, while yet others requested to remove foreign competitors from the domestic market. The leader of the nation benevolently blessed the request of some and denounced others for their excessive appetites.
You need to stop complaining and get to work and start getting things done to justify the help you receive. That's what the nation's leader said at the beginning of the meeting with country's business elite. The entrepreneurs, however, still complained and asked for help, although starting from afar. Mr. Nazarbayev, you are like a father to us. You scold us, but in the long run, you end up helping us. We always remember the help we received, and it's very unlikely someone might forget it. Good, thank you. But I'm too experienced to follow nice words and praises. In expectation of a new crisis, agrarian businessmen asked for soft loans and eased taxing, while bankers needed money from the National Fund to beat the competitors. Some of the foreign banks are controlled by their governments and receive support from the mother bank. Their ratings are higher than in Kazakhstan and they have access to cheaper, long-term credits. This gives them a competitive advantage over local banks and may lead to dominating influence of foreign institutions over real sectors of Kazakhstan economy. As a result, the situation with national banks may get worse. Construction managers have also shared their concerns. They expressed their willingness to participate in working on key state sites, saying that foreign competitors can stay on the market. However, not all projects should be given to them. Construction managers assured that they are no worse than foreign experts. If the mortgage loan interest amounts to at least 6 to 8%, although it is as low as 2 or 3% in developed countries, then middle-class citizens will be able to afford modern, comfortable apartments with nice architecture. The housing construction program has been adopted already. There will be no additional financing. The government needs money to fulfill other goals. Everything has been adopted. The nation's leader rejected some of the requests and promised to consider others, instructing the government to look into them. He also asked business communities to join Atamiken Entrepreneur Union, which is headed by his son-in-law Timur Kulibayev. The head of the state emphasized that membership with the union must become mandatory for all businessmen. The president promised government protection for those who join it.
Meanwhile, the opposition is discussing Kazakhstan without Nazarbayev. After a series of meetings in Almaty, another to prepare for the National Assembly was held in the capital on Friday. The branch out of Social Democrat Jarmakhan Tuyakbay, the site for dialogue, starts this fall. His observations on the discussions in the capital in the next story.
The opposition and civil society leaders already began to prepare for the resignation of the president. On Friday in Astana, they discussed the launch of the National Council this fall. Many believe that the authorities will try to save the regime by transferring powers to national leaders' protégé. However, the successor is much likely to be involved in clan battles, which might cause instability. However, per opponents of president's administration, the country is already crisis-affected, and recent incidents clearly display just that. It's unheard of to have state borders completely unsecured. Some guards escape en masse, others appear completely vulnerable. They could be easily murdered in numbers. This exemplifies everything in our lives. It's time to act, believes social activist Zauresh Battalova. She dodges all accusations of undermining stability, saying that no one in Kazakhstan imports democracy from afar like some Chinese consumer goods. At the same time, the very leadership of the country keeps a covert struggle, which raises the question of what makes people suffer more. Political contest takes place between individual groups within the administration. There is a saying, while nobles fight, the slaves suffer. But we are not slaves. There are those who doubt the effectiveness of program proposed by Jarmahan Tuyakbay. The former presidential candidate Musagali Duambekov denied all allegations of working for the president's office. He made it clear now he is inclined to act rather than listen to debates of political and expert community. You need to prove to us that the National Council is needed, that it has a definite purpose and specific task, and that our lives would change upon holding it. Otherwise, why bother? Maybe it's better to organize a march rally or a march of millions like in Russia. The Communist Party supporters have no doubts at all. They voted for holding the National Council without even looking into details of the future platform for dialogue. I believe we need to decide about the National Council once and for all, and I'm for it. Besides, there is no time to waste, because something unforeseen might happen one of these days. Don't you feel it's coming?
Потому что сегодня-завтра может что-то непредвиденное случиться. Вы же каждый чувствуете это.
The participants pointed out that it is very important to be constructive opposition. Social Democrats, for instance, are often criticized for trying to negotiate with the administration. Yet the real problems of NSDP, says Piotr Svoik, is that the authorities haven't developed and issued the order to potential partners. In a way, the National Council helped reveal certain issues within the sole legitimate opposition party. The gathering of experts took place again in the absence of the other NSDP Azad leaders Bulat Abilov and Amirjan Kasanov. Yet Jarmahan Tuyakbay emphasized that there are no disagreements on ideological issues within the organization.
On the eve of Police Day on Friday, Astana witnessed the solemn opening ceremony of the Monument of Glory to the police officers killed while on duty. It was erected near the Otan Ana sculpture. The relatives of those who died protecting Kazakhstan were invited to the ceremony. One of them is the wife of Gaziz Baytasov from Taraz. Police officer Baytasov covered the suicide bomber with his body. It has been about 8 months since the death of my spouse. They are providing proper support, but of course it would be nice to have more. The Interior Ministry honored the memory of its heroes with a modest salute, mini parade on the square in front of the monument, and the laying of flowers. Meanwhile, serious rearrangements are expected within the ministry. 1/3 of senior officials failed to pass the first stage of unscheduled assessments, reported the Chief Inspector of Law Enforcement body, Alik Shpikbayev. 26 senior law enforcement officials have filed a letter of resignation after realizing the high requirements of the commission. 69 heads of departments, or 1 in 5, failed to pass the assessment. 29 of them are recommended for dismissal, 28 for demotion, and 12 for transfer to other departments. The number of repatriates rapidly dropped in Kazakhstan. This is due to the suspension of the quota. While the authorities are calculating the unutilized money, the repatriates who were able to reach Kazakhstan are facing serious problems. The next report has more.
Bakatbek moved from China to Kazakhstan with his family 6 months ago. He heard that the authorities in Kazakhstan help with housing, job placement and free education. However, the reality didn't meet his expectations. I moved here 6 months ago. In the beginning, everything was going fine. We spent a lot of time on paperwork. When the moment came, we wanted to apply for a quota and buy land here, but nothing worked out. The government cancelled the quota and we don't know why. My plans are ruined. At the moment, Bakatbek's family has no savings left and they are barely making ends meet. Now, families similar to that of Bakatbek Anash are treated very differently by the government. From April 22nd, the immigration quota for repatriates was cancelled. The official position of authorities with regards to ethnic immigrants was recently announced by the chairman of the Human Rights Committee under the president of Kazakhstan. According to him, the country already has done a lot for repatriates. The government has a right to screen people before granting them citizenship and providing them social benefits. Ainargul Merikhan moved to Kazakhstan from Mongolia because of her grandchildren and search for a better life. She's a very experienced pediatrician, but no one is willing to employ her in Kazakhstan due to the lack of citizenship. Her savings lasted only for 6 months and now she's thinking about returning back to Mongolia. As soon as we arrived, we received a repatriate certificate. Later, they said that we need to wait until the beginning of the year. After that, they said that we need to wait until March, and then again until April. They kept telling us you have to wait. The last time when we approached them, they told us that the president issued an order cancelling the quota for granting the citizenship. Journalist Kurmetullah Muhamedkhanuli is also a repatriate. In his opinion, the attitude towards immigrants has changed radically within the presidential administration. It happened right after the ex-head of Samuruk-Kazana Foundation, Kulibayev, accused repatriates of organizing a strike in western Kazakhstan. It is bad. Now all ethnic repatriates will stop moving to Kazakhstan. With the quota, they at least had something to hope for. What to do now? I should have stayed in China since I had good life there. According to official sources, 220,000 families of ethnic Kazakhs moved to Kazakhstan from abroad within the state program of repatriation Nurly Kosh in the last 10 years. Some were fortunate and received benefits, just over $1,300 for the relocation and housing. Others were lucky to receive government help in terms of education and employment. Since the day of cancellation of quota, about 10,000 families are awaiting their turn for social housing. Currently, the government is preparing a new program to replace the old one, but when it will be ready is still unknown.
On Friday, June 22nd, the entire post-Soviet space is marking the 71st anniversary since the start of World War II. Candles were lit and flowers laid to the eternal flame in Pavlodar. Several hundred Pavlodar residents have gathered near the Glory Monument to pay tribute to people who died in World War II. The event took place at night on June 22nd, the date when fascist Germany attacked the Soviet Union over 70 years ago. After the ceremony, veterans moved to the War Museum where they laid wreaths at the monument to the unknown soldier and discussed key principles of victory with the youth. The strong-willed bravery and heroism of our people, headed by Marshal Zhukov and other military leaders of the Soviet Union, have stopped this powerful war machine, and finally the Germans were defeated near Moscow. And finally, the legendary Viktor Tsoi would have turned 50 this week. He was a hero of his time, a romantic of the Soviet era. Modern rock bands in Almaty were commemorating the legend. More from the memorial evening in the city in the next report.
Soviet rockers began demanding changes during perestroika times. Their children took up freedom calls after them. 20 years since the death of the legendary musician, he's still remembered. Tsoi lives in our hearts. The crude graffiti can be found on the walls of many buildings. His lyrics have long become quotable. Who is going to sing if everyone is going to sleep? Death is worth living and love is worth waiting for. These are the fighters' justice of our times. As Tsoi song goes, their mother is anarchy and father is a glass of port wine. Nobody is going to stop them from believing in Tsoi's ideals. Tsoi wasn't afraid of saying what he wanted to say. He wasn't afraid of authorities and persecution. There was nothing he was afraid of. That is why for our youth, it's a motivation to express our thoughts. She was luckier as she actually saw the legend and even held him by the hand. Now journalist Polina Szymanskaya is silently listening to Tsoi songs. Over 20 years ago, she was chanting and singing along at his concert. Those guys with long hair wearing leather jackets and rings, they used to sing those songs so many years past and they're still singing them. Polina's 5-year-old son is also growing up with free rock culture's values intact. The kid might not understand all the references like the aluminium cucumbers, but is ready to follow his mother unquestionably. Tsoi's song "We're Waiting for Changes" is a headliner. All music bands are covering it. Perhaps the time for changes has come. Back then in the 80s, Tsoi was placed on the blacklist of ideologically dangerous musicians, and it's not surprising that the instant hit about changes turned the perestroika legend into a real inspire for young people. Every new song was a discovery. It was a real cry from the heart, true perception of reality. He voiced all that so vividly and precisely with his songs. Even now, I can relate any song to any event. It seemed that the world went crazy after The Needle, starring Tsoi, was released into theaters. All of the Soviet Union became infatuated with the rocker. Musician Yerlan Kakeyev has been organizing Tsoi commemoration gatherings for several years now.
звезды распорядились именно так.
Perhaps that was his fate. He sparked like a star and then died. He brought information to the people and then had to disappear.
Принес какую-то информацию для всех людей.
To commemorate the legendary rock star, 10 bands were performing Viktor Tsой's songs throughout the evening. The rebellious lyrics appear as pressing as ever, and the legendary music is once again in demand now, just as it was decades ago when it was first played.
This is all we have time for now. Tune in to Vlast KZ on Monday and have a great weekend.